So it was January 1990. It was a raw, rainy night. I got home from work, and I thought it would be the perfect night to deep condition my hair and really clean my apartment. So I put the goop on, I put on a plastic bag, and I'm scrubbing my tub. The phone rings. Ms. Williams? Yes? This is Officer Beveridge from the York City Police Department. So I think I'm getting a prank phone call, and I say, "Oh, Officer Drink, what can I do for you?" And he said, "We're in your grandmother's apartment. Is Esther Little your grandmother?" I said, "Seriously?" He said, "Seriously." I said, "Yes, she's my grandmother. She called us. She told us that you are being held hostage in the apartment across the hall." And I said, "Well, clearly I'm not." And he said, "Would you like to talk to her?" "Yes." "Hi, Grandma, it's Robin. How are you, honey?" "I'm fine. Grandma, I'm fine. I'm in my apartment in Lancaster." "Well, I want you to come over." I said, "Grandma, do you want me to come see you?" "Come out of there. They shouldn't have you." At that point, the police officer takes the phone back, and he said, "You know, sometimes this is called sundowning. Maybe she missed some medication she should have had, but it might be a good idea if you come over and take her to the emergency room." So, took a quick shower, thinking I got the deep conditioner out of my hair, and I spent the night with greasy hair and my grandmother in the emergency room, and that was our beginning of her journey with dementia. She continued to have some hallucinations. She called my father one night and said, "Bob," it's 2 a.m, "Bob, Robin's been raped and she's laying in the alley behind my apartment." And my father, of course, being woken in the middle of the night, couldn't decide if it was real or not. And it became apparent she could not live on her own. So we moved her in with my parents. When we first moved her in there, my parents worked their regular schedule and she stayed at their home. But one day she wandered from their home and she was found by a dam that had very low guide rails, and it could have been a very dangerous situation. So then we arranged for adult daycare. My mom then would get up 5 a.m. in the morning to get my dad off to work, get grandma ready for adult daycare, drop her off, go work in the factory all day, come home, and about the time my mom could settle in for some rest, grandma would get active, and she'd bring everything out of the closet. "Do you have this one in a size 8? I could probably fit into this one in a size 6. So my mother was not getting any sleep. She fell prey to congestive heart failure, and we now knew we were going to have to look for some other situation for my grandmother. I was looking for placements for her. This was now 1991, and they didn't have the types of dementia units they do now, and it was hard to find a placement for her on a garment worker's pension. But I finally found a place in Camp Hill, and they said, "When we have the opening, we'll call you, and you have 2 days to get her there." I got the call on a Tuesday. I called my parents, let them know. I said, "Start labeling some of her clothes, pack up some things to make her room homey. We'll be there on Thursday with a truck. She has to be there Thursday afternoon at 4. I get to my parents at 2:30 in the afternoon. They never told my grandmother what was about to happen, and they hadn't started packing her. "Seriously? Start packing, and I'll take her for a walk and try and explain best I could." At that point, she still had moments of being lucid. So I'm walking her around my parents' property, and I'm saying, "Grandma, you know we love you so much, and we just want you to be safe. We want you to be cared for." And she stopped and looked me dead in the eye, and she said, "Robin, don't you dare put me someplace I don't want to go." Seriously? Her next statement, though, was, "I'll never see the kids in the schoolyard anymore." So we move her up to Camp Hill, settle her in. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call on a Friday night. "We can't find your grandmother." She managed to escape the nursing home. Seriously? It was a Friday night. It was June, torrential downpours. She proceeded to be missing overnight Friday night and Saturday night. This made the national news. There were helicopter searches. There were dog teams. The Camp Hill community was fabulous. 300 people responded and broke up into teams to look for her. They had pictures of her posted all over the community. And on Sunday morning, a 16-year-old kid walking his dog along the Cana de Gwynedd Creek found what he thought was a dead body. He found my grandmother in the creek. So with her being overnight, 2 nights in torrential downpours in thick brush-covered areas, she fell a lot, and she had cuts from her knees to her ankles. She left the nursing home in her pumps and her Sunday coat, and they were neatly placed by the creek. So the assumption is that she got into the creek to wash off her legs, slipped, and fell. Fortunately, her head landed on her rock. Her body was submerged, but her head was out, so she did not drown. When I made the identification in the emergency room, she had fixed eyes, hypothermic, but she was alive. And we thank the Lord for that. After she was settled into a room, we drove back home. We stopped at Booby's Brewery in the beer garden for a beer. And the waitress seemed to forget about us. And I finally flagged her down. And I said, "Seriously? I just pulled my grandmother out of a creek. I need a beer." Grandma lived for 16 years longer, and she was an amazing woman, seriously.